You just paid $8 for a watermelon. You bring it home, you cut it open, and the flesh inside is pale pink, almost white near the rind. Watery. No sweetness. Your family looks at it, and then they look at you, and nobody says anything. You have been there. That watermelon was not bad luck. It was picked 10 days too early, shipped across the country, and it looked fine on the outside. It looked exactly like the one next to it. That might have been perfect. You had no way to tell them apart. Nobody showed you how. What I am going to show you today is a Japanese selection method. 7 specific tests done with your hands and your ears, standing in any produce aisle in under 90 seconds. These tests do not require any special knowledge. They do not cost anything, and once you learn them, you will use them for the rest of your life. My father grew watermelons in Nagano, not as a hobby, as a serious crop, in careful rows, tended the way you tend something that feeds your family. He had a way of walking the bins at the roadside market. Slow, unhurried, picking up one melon at a time, setting it back, moving to the next. I watched him do it 100 times before I understood what he was looking for. He was not guessing. He was reading. I have grown my own food in this country for over 30 years. I have brought this method with me, tested it in American stores on American watermelons, and refined it through enough good picks to tell you it works. 7 tests. Let me take you through each one. If this is the kind of thing you wish someone had told you years ago, that is what this channel is. One method, once a week, tested for 30 years before I ever say it out loud. Nothing sold to you. Subscribe if you want the next one. Now, before the tests themselves, there is one thing worth understanding, because the failure most people experience at the produce bin is not random. It follows a pattern. The mistake everyone makes. Person picks a watermelon by looking at it. They reach for the biggest one, or the darkest green one, or the one with the fewest blemishes. All 3 of those instincts will lead you to the wrong melon more often than not. Size tells you very little about sweetness. Large watermelon in a bin of large watermelons means nothing except that it grew in good conditions or was left on the vine long enough to expand. It does not tell you whether the sugars developed. It does not tell you when it was harvested. It tells you the melon had water and space. That is all. The dark green color is the same problem. Color is a variety indicator, not a ripeness indicator. Some varieties are striped. Some are a flat, dark green. Some are almost pale. The color of the skin tells you what kind of watermelon it is. It does not tell you whether that watermelon is sweet. Commercial produce shipping delivers watermelons to the store that look exactly like ripe ones. They pass the color test. They pass the size test. They fail every other test because they were never allowed to finish. That is not an accident. That is the system. The Japanese method does not start with how the watermelon looks from across the bin. It starts by picking it up. The thing important about a watermelon is communicated through touch, through sound, and through a few specific physical markers that do not lie. Once you know what those markers are, you stop shopping with your eyes. Where this method comes from. Japanese roadside market vendors, selling directly from their own land, often from stands built at the edge of their fields, could not afford to hand a customer a bad piece of fruit. A single disappointing melon meant that customer did not come back. Their reputation was the entire business. Over generations, they developed an approach to selecting fruit at the point of sale that has nothing to do with labeling, nothing to do with what a distributor tells you. It is tactile knowledge. It is knowledge that lives in the hands. My father learned this from his father. Yuki, my wife, learned versions of the same approach from her mother, applied to different fruits. The framework is the same. You do not trust the surface. You test for what is happening inside. The 7 tests I am going to show you target 7 different internal quality markers: sugar content, water content, ripeness timing, pollination quality, and growth consistency. Each one tells you something the others cannot. You do not need all 7 to be perfect. But the more tests a watermelon passes, the more confident you can be. A melon that passes all 7 is the one you put in your cart. Pick up a watermelon, any watermelon, next time you are standing in the produce section, and run through these with me. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what you are looking for. Tests 1 and 2. The field spot and the stem. Put the watermelon on a flat surface and look at the underside. There will be a patch of discoloration where the melon rested on the ground during its entire time in the field. That patch is called the field spot, and it is one of the most reliable ripeness indicators you can use. Creamy yellow field spot, the color of fresh butter or thick cream, means that watermelon sat in the field through its full ripening period. The sun was on the top, the ground was under the bottom, and the melon had time to convert its starches to sugar. That is the field spot you want. White field spot, or one that is pale and almost the same color as the rest of the skin, means the watermelon was harvested too early. It did not finish. The ground contact was brief. Walk away from a white field spot. The sweetness is not there. Now turn the watermelon over and look at the stem end, the small dried nub where the vine connected. A brown, dry, shriveled stem means the melon was left on the vine until it was fully ripe and then cut. Brown and dry is what you want. Green stem means the watermelon was harvested before it was ready. The vine was still feeding it. It was not finished. Green stem. Walk away. 2 tests, 30 seconds. You have already eliminated most of the poor choices in the bin. Tests 3 and 4. The sugar web and the shape. Run your hand across the skin of the watermelon. You are looking for texture. On some watermelons, you will feel a rough, brown, raised webbing, almost like a network of small scabs or trails across the surface. That is sugar webbing, sometimes called bee scarring, and it is one of the best signs you can find on a watermelon. That webbing forms because bees return to the flower of that watermelon repeatedly during pollination. Each visit left a small mark. Repeated visits mean strong pollination, and strong pollination means the fruit developed fully, which means higher sugar content inside. More webbing means more sweetness. A smooth-skinned watermelon with no texture at all had minimal pollination activity. The bees are telling you something. The shape of the watermelon matters for a different reason. A symmetrical, uniform melon, round or oval, consistent from end to end with no irregular bumps or flat sides, grew evenly. Even growth means consistent moisture and nutrient absorption throughout the fruit. The flesh inside will be uniform and fully developed. A lumpy, asymmetrical melon had interruptions during growth. Dry spells, inconsistent watering, uneven sunlight. The inside will reflect that. You will find dense sections and hollow sections. The sweetness will be uneven. Round and symmetrical is what you want. Now, I want to stop here for a moment, because the next test is the one most people have heard about, but most people do not actually understand. The knock test. And there is more to it than simply tapping the outside. Stay with me. By the end of this, you will know how to run all 7 of these tests in any store in under 90 seconds, starting today. Before I move on, what watermelon test have you tried before, and did it work for you? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one. Test 5. The knock test. Pick up the watermelon, hold it with both hands, or rest it on your forearm. Give it a firm knock with your knuckle. Not a tap, a real knock. Curl your middle finger and strike the center of the melon with one clean motion. You are listening for one of 3 sounds, and the difference between them matters. An unripe watermelon sounds like knocking on wood. High, flat, dense. The sound does not carry. There is no resonance. That melon is still mostly solid inside, the flesh tight, and the sugars undeveloped. The cellular structure has not loosened. That is the sound of a melon that needs more time. An overripe watermelon sounds like knocking on a wet barrel. Dull, thudding, low, but without any life in it. Heavy and dead. The flesh inside has begun to break down. The cell walls have collapsed. The water has separated from the flesh. That melon was left too long. A ripe watermelon sounds like a drum. Deep, hollow, resonant. There is a slight vibration in your knuckles after the knock. The sound carries and then releases like a bass note. The water content is high, the cells are full, the flesh is firm and juicy. That is the sound you want. Wood, drum, barrel, those are your 3 reference points. The drum is in the middle. Every watermelon you knock will fall somewhere on that spectrum. My father used to say you could learn the sound in a single afternoon if you knocked on enough of them. He was right. The first time you hear a ripe one, really hear it. You will know it for the rest of your life. One honest limitation, because I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. The knock test is the most skill-dependent of the 7. It takes a few tries to calibrate your ear, especially if you have never done it before. Do not let that discourage you. The other 6 tests give you enough information to make a confident choice. The knock test becomes your confirmation once you have practiced it. Tests 6 and 7, the weight and the tail. Pick up 2 watermelons from the bin that are roughly the same size. Lift one, then the other. The heavier one is the better choice. Every time. Weight difference is the difference between a melon that tastes like summer and one that tastes like water. A watermelon is 90% water by weight. The water content of a ripe melon is at its peak. That water is what carries the dissolved sugars. A dense, heavy watermelon is a juicy watermelon. The weight is not incidental. It is the juice you are feeling in your hands. 2 melons, same size, heavier wins. Now look at the tendril, the small curling vine shoot closest to where the stem connects to the fruit. Not all commercial watermelons will have this still attached, but when it is present, it is one of the most reliable indicators available. Brown, completely shriveled tendril means the vine registered the melon as finished and stopped feeding it. The plant made the decision. The tendril dried up as a signal. That is the melon that was ready when it was picked. A green tendril, even partially green, means the vine was still feeding the melon when it was cut. The plant did not give the signal. The melon was taken before its time. Green tendril. Walk away. 7 tests. Let me put them together now. The 90-second routine. Field spot. You are looking for butter, not chalk. The underside should be creamy yellow, golden, the color of cream, left out in a warm kitchen. Stem, brown and dry, the biography of the melon written in the nub that once connected it to the vine. Sugar webbing. Rough, brown, raised texture across the skin. The more of it, the sweeter the melon. The bees did their work. Shape, symmetrical, uniform, round or evenly oval. No flat sides, no lumps. The knock, deep, hollow, resonant. The drum, not the wood, not the barrel. Weight, heavier of 2 similar-sized melons wins. The weight is the water. The water is the sweetness. Tail brown and shriveled if present. The plant's own signal that the melon was finished. That is the complete routine. Run it in order. It takes between 60 and 90 seconds once you have done it a few times. You do not need every single test to be perfect. A melon that passes 6 or 7 of these is the one you put in your cart. Think back to the last watermelon that disappointed you. The pale, watery one you brought home and set on the counter. Run it through these 7 tests in your mind. The field spot was white. The stem was still green. The skin was smooth. No webbing at all. It knocked flat like tapping on a wall. It felt light for its size. That melon was harvested before it was ready. Nothing done during shipping or storage was going to bring the sweetness back. The sugars were not there. They never developed. You were not making a bad choice. You were given no way to make a good one. Now you have one. The method does not change based on the store, the season, or the variety. Field, spot, stem, webbing, shape, knock, weight, tail. Those 7 things tell you the truth about what is inside the melon, regardless of what the label says or what the price is. One more thing I want to say clearly. The sweetest watermelons are not always the biggest, and they are not always the most expensive. 10-pound melon with a butter yellow field spot, Heavy webbing, a brown stem, and a drum knock will outperform a 16-pound watermelon that fails. 3 of these tests. Size is marketing. These tests are agriculture. Japanese farming families have used this method for generations. Because it works. It works every season, in every store, on every variety. My father used it without ever writing it down. He just walked the rows slowly and let his hands tell him what to put in the cart. Now you know it. Next time, I am going to show you how to apply a very similar approach to tomatoes. How to pick a fully ripe, deeply flavored tomato in a store full of ones harvested too early without cutting a single one open. It is the natural next step after this video. Until then, look for the butter yellow field spot, listen for the drum, not the wood, not the barrel, and remember, the right answer is usually cheaper, simpler, and older than the thing being sold to you.